Welcome to Breaking Financial Chains, where we combine practical money guidance with emotional healing to help you break free from financial limitations. I'm Tanya Ibberson, your financial wingwoman.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of my podcast, Breaking Financial Change. I am so happy that you're here. Thank you so much for listening and for joining me as I chat about this episode. And this time, we're talking about why my work in particular is focused on women. I do get asked this question a lot. I'm not intending to exclude anybody at all, but this is specifically why this work is so important for women, why financial coaching, why the help for women um, needs to be very, very specific. So let me be upfront. I get asked this question a lot. Why do I focus on women? And the answer is simple because we need it. Not because women aren't capable, but because we've been shut out, we've been silenced or shamed around money for generations, and that has consequences. So we're playing catch up. I'm playing catch up and I'm here to hold your hand and help you do exactly the same thing. Because listen, we're not broken. We've just been playing a game we weren't allowed to train for. So what do you expect if we feel as though we're doing it wrong? It's not that we're doing it wrong. We've just not had somebody tell us, you're doing an awesome job, girl. Keep going. And that is why I work with women. This is why my help is focused on what I can do for women. Essentially, the system wasn't built for it. The system was built for the patriarchy, for a male dominated society, for the men that earn the money, that are the breadwinners, while the little women stay at home and raise a family and keep house. Why are we behind? Partly because of that, partly because of that generational piece of an expected role for a woman. Women in the UK couldn't even open a bank account without a man until 1975. They couldn't borrow money. They couldn't own property without having the guarantee from a father or a husband or a male relative. I mean, that's just crazy. 1975. I was born in 1979. So we're not talking about hundreds and hundreds of years ago here. We're talking about one generation ago. We're talking about the lives that our parents knew, the lives that they lived and had to work around. So this is still very quite fresh. The gender pay gap still exists. It's 2025, and we are still having those arguments about the rate that we're paid as women, about the amount of salary that we can earn in the workplace as women. And it's a lot worse when you factor in unpaid care work as well. Women tend to be the caregivers, primary caregivers in a family. I understand this is not the same for every situation. I understand this is not the same for every family. And there are examples out there. In particular, I hear same sex relationships where it's split evenly. Fancy that. This is not about one person taking more of a role than the other. It is about completely sharing that load. And we have a lot to learn from that example that's been set. But women are much more likely to work part time, to pause careers, to take care of family, whether that's at the beginning or the end of life in terms of life cycle, or whether it be underpaid in terms of the emotional labor roles that we hold in terms of holding down a family. So, husband, boyfriend comes home from work and has a bad day. What they need is very important, and therefore we tend to step in. We tend to be the ones that get the children ready for school. We tend to be the ones that take maternity leave, which is a much longer gap compared to paternity leave. Again, typically, it is very much a generalized statement. It is very much my lived experience. And this is my podcast. So this is what I'm sharing with you. And if you can relate, I would love to hear from you. If you have a different experience, please share that too, because we all want to hear about it. More common, though, to be the situation where the women are the ones that are main caregivers. The women are the ones that are earning less. The women that are the ones that take longer at university, for example, much more likely to do masters and therefore start their career, start joining the workforce at a later time. All of those little gaps, maternity leave, starting later, taking unpaid leave to care for an elderly relative at the end of life, or reducing work hours, all dip into the amount of earnings that we qualify for putting into a pension, or all dip into the amount that we can earn, first of all, to even contribute to a pension to think about our later life. So it's not just about what we earn when we're in the workplace. This is about the financial impact of the expectations that are set upon us as women and the roles that we're supposed to hold. We're meant to have very much the emotional side of the roles. It's an expectation that we're there to support and make sure the house runs smoothly. I once worked with a woman who earned six figures, but never once negotiated her salary, never once felt comfortable, even in the annual appraisal process, which is precisely the time to have those conversations, because she was raised to believe it's not polite to ask for money, not polite to talk about money. That's not a coincidence. That's programming. Men typically don't have an issue asking for more money. Men typically don't have an issue with raising the question around pay rises, additional benefits, or going for a new job and negotiating a higher salary than the one that's offered. Women typically don't do that. It could well be from a place of from the example of my story that I share in one of my episodes about the money mindset and my why, is around my story of the bouncy ball, where I felt I didn't deserve to have money for myself. And that would 10 years ago, 20 years ago, me would not have had that conversation to say, hey, I need a pay rise. I've been at this salary level for this amount. I'm bringing this much in. I've won this much work. Therefore, increased profit for you. I deserve a cut of that. And it's very much not the conversation that we're taught or trained to have as women. And that's because of conditioning. That's because of the expectation that's been set. This is the right thing to do. This is polite. This is not the right thing to do. And as women, we don't talk about money. So I want to touch on generational trauma, generational financial trauma within all of that, again, because we tend to learn from the examples that are set for us from a very young age, whether we're consciously aware that we're learning or whether that's just something that's happening. And trauma doesn't have to mean something massive. It doesn't have to be a catastrophic financial impact on the family life. When I learned about trauma, I have a trauma informed qualification. We talk about big T and little t. And the truth remains that all trauma is valid. A big T might be something catastrophic. You think of the word trauma, you might think about a serious car accident, a house fire, a redundancy, a death in the family. Little t might be something that we interpret as traumatic. I talk about in one of the episodes in the work that I do, the what I do, it's the memory that we hold from an experience. So that might be being at the front of the lunch queue at the canteen of school and being told you've not got any money on your account, so therefore you can't have lunch today. It might be standing at the front of the queue for a cash point and not having any money in the bank, and the machine just spits out a printout for you saying insufficient funds. When there's a queue of four people behind you, and even though they are so absorbed in their own lives and their own needs that they don't notice that you feel that everybody in that queue behind you knows that you haven't got any money in your bank account. So trauma isn't necessarily something massive, it's anything that leaves a mark. And that gets passed down often without words because it affects our behavior. It affects the day to day things that we do, and it therefore affects the examples that we set for our children and the people around us that look up to us. So, examples of generational financial trauma in women in particular might be the grandmother that grew up during the war, during the Second World War, and had to use ration books to get food to provide for her family, which she then had to make last until the next ration stamps could be used for certain items of food. So we grow up in rationing and we therefore save every single scrap. Nothing is wasted because we really don't have a lot to start with and we have a whole family to feed. And therefore, your mum learns from that. She learns about not wasting, and you will eat everything on your plate, and you cannot get down from the table until you've finished your meal. And you can see how that is such a simple knock on effect, and how that could then perhaps manifest an issue with an eating disorder for your mum because of the scarring and the trauma that your grandmother had, and she's passed that learning on, that lesson and that belief on, wanting to do the best by her daughter, wanting to make sure that she doesn't go without, but actually that's interpreted in a different way by mum. Let's stick with the money theme for now, but that then might be passed on to you about feeling really anxious about buying yourselves new things, about feeling really anxious to say, all my socks have got holes in them. Can I get some new socks for school? I'm getting laughed at in the changing room to PE when people see that I've got holes in my socks. I remember watching my mum try and darn a pair of the socks that I had for the secondary school I went to because they were expensive. I had a full scholarship for a private school, and the socks could only be bought from one place, and a specialist clothes shop near the school. And my mum tried to make the ones that I had last, and she tried to darn them. What an absolute nightmare. It took her hours to darn these socks. I'd never seen anybody use one of those darner. It looked like a mushroom to, like, spread the sock over it, where she wove the thread from a pair of socks that she dismantled to be able to repair mine, and they lasted one wear before those things had fallen apart again. So in the end, I got new socks, but she did everything she could to try and make those socks last. Another example might be a mum who's found herself in a difficult situation, a mum who married for financial security because she didn't have any independence, because she didn't want her children to go without. Let's say she's been widowed and she marries again for all the wrong reasons. She doesn't marry for love, she doesn't marry for security, she doesn't marry for the love security, I mean. She marries for the financial security. But then at what cost? What cost is that to feel that you need to take certain actions to provide for your family because you feel you can't do it for yourself? And then you feel pressure to stay in a relationship because of the fear of not being able to do things on your own, or starting over is really, really scary. Starting from scratch is something that you can't do by yourself. You need to have someone by your side. Another example might be a childhood where we don't talk about money. So, in one of the episodes around money mindset, I talk about my direct learnings from the throwaway comments that were made by my dad and someone I used to work with. So, I asked my dad how much money he earned, and he threatened me with a sick ear. Very, very common phrase to use in the northwest of England, in Lancashire, in the mid 80s. But the learning I took from that is we don't talk about money. You don't ask questions about money, and money must be bad. If this is the feeling I get if I ask a question about money, it must be really bad to talk about it. So I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to read about it. I'm not going to learn about it, and therefore we're doing ourselves a disservice. We're doing our children a disservice by helping them to build the belief that it's not safe to talk about money, because we all need it. Money literally makes the world go round, and money gives us choice. It gives us freedom to make different decisions. So if it's not safe to talk about money, you might then freeze as an adult when it comes to sorting out your finances. It might be then that you don't feel that you can look at your bank statements or your credit card statements, or add up the total of the credit card statements that you're holding because you're too scared to understand and settle and know what the total is so that you can actually do something about the financial situation that you're in. And that can be more scary in reality, but because we feel safe doing what we've always done, that is what keeps us from taking those steps to do something differently. And those patterns shape our risk tolerance. So we might not feel safe investing because we worry if we invest, we might lose everything, and therefore we hold on much, much tighter to the cash that we have. It shapes our sense of financial safety or lack of it. It shapes our willingness to take control, or whether we would prefer to delegate controlling money to someone else, whether we feel grateful for somebody saying, you know what, I can do that for you. And that is quite often the starting point of where financial control and financial abuse can come in. Somebody offering to help, or you asking for someone to take responsibility away from you because it feels too overwhelming for you. And before you know where you are, you don't know how to manage your budget, and you don't know what money is yours and what money is available to spend. And you don't know how to access the funds that you have for yourself. It can also produce or shape a fear of confrontation. So, in a situation where you might want to ask questions about money, or you might want to question somebody who has been helping you, in inverted commas, manage your finance, but then you start to learn that maybe they've not been making the best decisions in your interest as you once believed that they would do, because you were just so grateful that you now don't need to worry about paying the bills and paying the credit card statement. It's taken care of. But what that actually means is that you've given away your own choice and your own power, and the control and um the feeling that comes from being able to make those decisions for yourself, that empowerment that comes from having that financial freedom for yourself. So, what might this feel like in your life? And I'm wondering if any of these situations or scenarios might be something any of you can relate to. And if they do, I would encourage you to reach out. Please do get in touch. Please do let me know if there's any examples that you could relate to slightly and yours was slightly different. I would love for you to share. I am all about learning and understanding other examples from people. I've learnt from books, I've learnt from courses on my financial abuse specialist course. I've lived my own experience that I learn the most when I'm coaching and talking to people and understanding exactly their stories. And it means that I can share more stories with them to help them see that they're not alone, which is such a key part. So it could be that you are a high earning professional individual. Let's call you Jessica. You have a high powered job, you have a lot of responsibility, you have the nice house, the nice car, the holidays, the nice handbags, and the suits to go with it. Maybe you feel like you should know how to manage your money, but you quietly avoid it. And who cares what anybody else thinks, right? Because they get to see the polished outside external version of you that you want them to see. They get to see the version that you believe you need to show other people as well. It's not necessarily that you like to live in heels and fitted suits when actually what you will prefer is a comfy pair of trainers and a tracksuit on the weekend, or leggings and a massive big hoodie that you can just pull the hood up and shut out the entire world. And that sounds amazing. That's my kind of weekend. It could be that you're working so hard because of the responsibilities of your high paying six-figure job that you don't have time for other things in your life, such as spending time with your kids. And they're at after school clubs and they're entertaining themselves after school and they're letting themselves in because they've got key and they're being trusted to get their homework done. It might be that you've got the money to spend on tutors and gaming equipment to keep them occupied to make up for the fact that they don't get to spend any time with you. Maybe you're overspending on the kids. Maybe you're throwing money at a problem because when things lighten up a month from now, 6 weeks from now, when you get that bonus, when you have a holiday, you will rethink this situation because there are times in the deepest, darkest hours of the night where you can feel that you're maybe not living a life aligned to your values as you wished you could. But you're earning the money and you're on the hamster wheel and you're being carried along by the inertia of what's going on around you. Maybe you feel guilt when you're buying stuff for yourself because of the beliefs that you've created or have been created with your life. Maybe you've also got a drawer of unopened bank statements and credit card statements because you tell yourself you don't have the time to look at that because you're so busy moving on to the next thing and getting organized for the kids and you've got to work late because you've got a presentation to finish. So building up these unhelpful beliefs can drive certain types of behaviors that are maybe keeping you from the path that you want to lead, maybe keeping you from the job that will make you feel more fulfilled rather than something that just pays you more money. Maybe we've got a different situation. Maybe we've got a parent or a mother, this might be you, who doesn't have huge financial means, doesn't have money to be able to throw at the situation, but you want to work really, really hard to make sure your kids don't go without. Because maybe you had an upbringing or a childhood where you didn't have very much because of the circumstances and the situations that you grew up in. So, in order to make sure that your children want something, you deprive yourself So maybe you don't buy yourself a new pair of shoes or that handbag that you've had your eye on because the kids need shoes instead and their needs come ahead of you. So again, this is one of those beliefs that is built up around you aren't worthy of having money spent on yourself. You aren't worthy of spending your hard earned money on you. You might also not have a pension or not have any personal savings because you constantly sacrifice yourself because you believe that your role is to care for others. And who is caring for you? No one is caring for you because you've constantly put everybody else ahead of yourself. So you've got no safety net. You've got no financial prospects for the future. Where do you think that that's going to come from? Where is that stability going to come from in the future for you? Are you going to have to work until you're eligible to draw a state pension? And even then, you're going to have to still work because that money is not going to be enough to be able to sustain you. It could also be that you allow your partner to manage the money. You could be the partner who feels completely stuck. And this is one that I see quite a lot. This is the lived experience that I have. This is the very reason I trained and I'm training to be a specialist in financial abuse. The partner who feels stuck because my partner handles all the money. Partner, husband, boyfriend, whichever way around you want to call it. And therefore, you do not have the financial means to leave should you wish. And I've said this on other podcast episodes. Every woman should have the means and the mindset to leave a situation that you don't feel 100% comfortable in. So you start to feel trapped. Because if your other half is handling the money, if your partner is in charge of what money comes in and what money goes out, how do you start to build a little bit of a nest egg for yourself? How are you able to start putting some savings to one side to put a deposit down on somewhere else to live, to be able to build yourself a buffer for when you really need some money? And at the same time, because you don't understand or know how to manage your finances, because it's something you very happily delegated in the past through no fault of your own, by the way, because you saw that happening with mum and dad. Dad managed the finances. And therefore, why would your partner not manage the finances? Because you weren't taught that that's a normal thing to do because of these lived experiences. So we start to feel trapped and we don't know where to start because dealing with finances feels really scary and alien to you. So we don't know what steps to take first. We don't know how to have that conversation. And it links back to the confrontation as well. We feel it's bound to create conflict. It's bound to create some level of confrontation. So I'm too scared to ask that question or start having the conversation around money because we don't feel safe. So we carry a huge, heavy burden, an emotional load as women because we're taught to be good but not greedy. We're not taught to invest. We're taught to be homemakers. We're told to not be difficult. We're told not to talk about money because it's not ladylike or it's tacky. We're taught we can't outshine our partner. We should be grateful for what we have. Therefore, we don't ask for pay rises. So we shrink. We say thank you. We build our lives inside someone else's budget until one day we wake up and then wonder why we feel invisible. And that is just so sad. And it's something that has to change. Women are capable of managing their own finances. And this is where I step in. This is where I'm going to show you how to do it. So keep listening to this podcast. This work is so needed. Women are managing homes, women are raising children, women are running businesses, they're holding down high powered, high paying jobs. Yet we're still told and shown the example that we need to defer hard financial decisions. Have you ever been into a car showroom and you say to the salesman, "That's great, thanks so much. I'm just going to go, I'm going to think about this." Oh, of course, yeah. If you need to talk to your husband before you buy the car, I completely understand. And you feel you need to smack him upside the head and say, "I don't need to discuss it, get the agreement or permission from my husband. I want to compare this to the other quotes that I've got from different garages." But it's just that throwaway comment, that standard line that's given to women. Or is it easier if I talk to your husband? Which also makes I'm not promoting violence, by the way, but also smack her upside the head is what I say, because it's just plain rude. But that's not just holding us back, it's holding back the next generation too. This is the reason why I talk to women. This is the reason why I aim everything I talk about at women. We are disadvantaged. We are on the back foot. We need to share these experiences. We need to be more open with our children, for example, with your girls, especially. I talk about money and my lived experience with my older daughter in particular all the time. She's 20 years old. She's at university. And one of the first things we did with her before she left university almost 2 years ago was help her create a budget. And we sat down with her and we worked out how much was she likely to spend over the year. So some of the things we knew, some of the things we needed to guess at. And this is the perfect example of where we start. We set up a spreadsheet. How much are your halls of residence going to cost for year one? And then in year two, she's living in a student house at the moment, sharing with four other people. So we updated the budget for year two, but in year one, hall fees. How much food do we reckon? What sort of budget were we going to place on that? She wanted to join the gym. She wanted to join certain societies. So there was membership fees included within that. She wanted to be able to go out because she's a student at Newcastle University and she wants to make the most of the culture and the lifestyle that she had from being independent at that age. She wants to be able to buy presents for friends. She has a car, which she also wants to continue to keep and run. So things like servicing and insurance, etc., etc. She had been working since she was 16 years old. So she had money in the bank. She had savings that she brought up. And then we helped her fund the budget that she put together. Having these open conversations, not shying away from the questions like how much do you earn and how much do things cost, are how we can start that in the younger generation. So this is legacy work. This isn't about punishing ourselves or reminding ourselves of what we didn't have. This is about breaking that cycle of always doing what we've always done in favor of making a positive change. So this is about making change for you. This is about making change for your children. And I have to share the personal side of why I do what I do. It's great that I can work with clients and coach them and they can pay for my time, which is what I need, by the way, to run a business. It's what I need to be able to pay my bills and sustain my family and my lifestyle. But equally, I don't want to be the gatekeeper for this knowledge, which is why I've started this podcast, which is why I've set up a charity called the Financial Control to Freedom Project, because it feels right to be able to try and give back to those who genuinely don't have access to this information, who do not know where to start. Because I, I honestly believe those who can must help change and reshape the future. So, as a reflection point, I would invite you to have a think about what money lessons did the women in your life teach you? Not through their words, not what they said, but through their behavior. What were they like with money? What were they like with their things? Things that used to be money. So the way that we are with our possessions is a similar way of how we are with money. And are you still living by their rules? Really spend some time just thinking about this. And are they serving you? Are they helping you move your life forward in a way that you want, that is aligned with your values? And let me know. If you recognize yourself in this episode, I want you to know you're not broken, you're brilliant, and you're not alone. This is why I focused on women, because we have been underestimated, under resourced, and overworked for far too long. And I want that to end with us. We don't just need better budget, we need to break those cycles. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you've got something interesting out of this, and I would love to see you listening on my next podcast.
Thank you for joining me today on Breaking Financial Chains. Remember, you have the power to transform your relationship with money one step at a time. If this episode helped you, please subscribe and leave a review to help others find their path to financial freedom. I'm Tanya, your financial wingwoman, and I'll see you next week.